who will take us through the initial part of the POSH law, and then I'll come back for some of the other topics as we go through, right? If you have any questions, please do post it through the Q&A panel. We will be more than happy to answer those questions. Let me stop sharing.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me. I would like to see a thumbs up or a yes on chat, just to be sure that you can hear me. Okay, thanks. So as we have started talking about it, so it's very obvious, we would be discussing about the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2030 today. Before we go deep dive into the webinar, we would like to discuss a few terms that we would be using constantly throughout this webinar. The first one is the definition of employer. So employer, as you all know, is an employer of any organization. It can be a government organization, non-government, company, partnership, sole proprietorship. Even if you are hiring domestic help in your house, then even you become the employer. And this person is definitely responsible for the management, supervision, and control of the workplace, includes even a single person or a board or a committee of members. So basically, this is a person who would be having the final say on formulation and implementation of any policy in the organization. This person or the group or team of people, board or committee, have the responsibility of providing a safe working environment for every employee within the workplace as per the POSH Act. Having said that, now let's look at who an employee is. So of course, this is a person employed at a workplace for any kind of work. This can be a regular or a temporary opportunity or employment. So this would also mean that somebody who comes on a daily wage basis, somebody who's just hired as a backfill for somebody's absence. This can also include contractor who has been working in a client office, or working under some other organization's payroll, but working in a certain different environment or different office. All of these people are still considered as employee. This can be even if the person is paid or not paid, that is, they are working on a voluntary basis, the person still would still be considered as an employer. It is not necessary, the person would be considered as an employee, and it is not necessary that they should have an agreement in place for the person to be considered as an employee. Now, as we all know, the POSH Act, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, is definitely regarding is for employees to file a complaint in case they face harassment. So the term that we use is aggrieved woman. As per the definition from the Act, it is any woman that is of any age, irrespective of her employment status, like a temporary employee or a permanent employee, or anybody who has been subjected to sexual harassment at workplace. Either the person was in the workplace or she has been in the premise for the purpose of work. This person can be of any age, and it is not necessary that her employment status, it is not really important that the employment status has to be permanent. So like what we have been discussing before, even if it is a domestic help who has been working in a house kind of a setup, even that person can file a complaint in case they do face sexual harassment. And respondent is the person who's accused, but the term we use in the Act is respondent. This is the person against whom a complaint is filed by an aggrieved woman. The gender of this person does not matter, and the complaint can be filed either with the internal committee or the local committee. We will be discussing internal committee and local committee in detail in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so moving on. This is the bare minimum compliance requirement every organization must go to be sure that they are compliant with the POSH law. As you can see, the first thing would be to, have a POSH policy in place. It is not necessary that you just have, it is not enough that you have a POSH policy written, drafted, and kept safe. It is very, very important that it is disseminated among the employees as well. In addition, if you have more than 10 or more employees in your workplace, IC has to be constituted. That's the internal committee who would be accepting complaints of sexual harassment and redressing it must be constituted. We would also be discussing she-box registration in the upcoming session because, though it is a relatively new step in POSH compliance, it's a very, very important step because this is how the government of India is going to track the POSH compliance within the country. Okay, so there are some steps every employer has to take to be sure that they're compliant. In addition, employer has the responsibility to spread awareness about POSH to their employees, as well as build capacity within the internal committee to be sure that they are empowered enough to handle sensitive and important complaints of coming from employees. Finally, all organizations that have an internal committee in place must be filing an annual report to the district officer. We'll be discussing all this in detail soon. Let's start with the POSH policy. So the whole idea of POSH policy is taking a very strong stance that you are with the employees and the employer is here to make sure that employees too have a very safe work environment. So that's what you can see on the slide right now. Employer is responsible for drafting the anti-sexual harassment policy. It is not necessary that the employer, the director, the CEO has to do it. Of course, it can be delegated to either the HR or the internal committee. We'll discuss a few components that must be included in the POSH policy. So definitely the first one is all the definitions, very important definitions must be added. A few are the ones we have already seen, like employer, employee, aggrieved women, respondent. In addition, you must also discuss what is sexual harassment in the policy. There should be a clear understanding of what is considered as workplace. And then it should be very clearly mentioned that as per this policy, sexual harassment is considered as a misbehavior or misconduct. Make it very clear that the organization has only zero tolerance for sexual harassment. In case there is a complaint of sexual harassment, how it would be handled, as well as any other breach in policy, things like conducting a unfair inquiry, going ahead and conducting an inquiry that is not in line with the POSH policy, or even a breach of confidentiality, which also is something that you have to make it very clear in the POSH policy. Make it the internal committee structure, including the name of the members, the contact details, and each of their designation, as in who is the presiding officer, who's the internal members, and who are the external members must be made clear. Complaint procedure, that is the timeline of filing the complaint, the steps that will be taken during the complaint redressal process, including inquiry process and timelines. This is the bare minimum that is required in a POSH policy. In addition, if the organization wishes to have a gender neutral policy, even that also is something that the organization can develop or draft. Though POSH law in itself is a gender specific law, which means that only women can file complaints of sexual harassment as per the law. Organizations these days are coming up with their own gender neutral policy. In addition, bystander intervention is something else that the organization can consider including in their policy. So bystander intervention, that is filing a complaint by the witness, is not something that has been addressed or even spoken about at all in the POSH law. However, organizations can still consider the idea of empowering witnesses in preventing sexual harassment without deviating from the law at all. In addition, of course, the law does talk about what are the appeal procedures. Organization can still consider having an internal appellate procedure so that in case the employees are not satisfied with the decisions taken by the internal committee, they still have one more, board or committee to approach to before they have to go out and file a complaint outside the organization. Now we'll just quickly cover a few questions that you might have about the POSH policy. First one is, we do have a global organization, that is our headquarters is outside India. So we have a global policy in place. Is it necessary that we should still have a POSH policy? So POSH policy is very specific to India. So even if you have a global policy in place, POSH policy is mandatory because it is as per the POSH law. That is, if your organization does have a branch or division inside India, POSH policy does apply to you. POSH law does apply to you, and hence you should have a POSH policy, at least for the employees in India. So even if you do have a global policy or not, POSH policy is still a must. In addition, gender neutral POSH policy is not possible. I mean, we do understand why this question comes, because definitely this is because the POSH law in itself is very gender specific. But what organizations can do is they can have a gender neutral policy with a certain clause. So as you all know, POSH law gives the internal committee certain powers that they can, exercise while handling complaints of sexual harassment filed by women. So these powers cannot be used by the internal committee if they are handling complaints from individuals of other gender, which means the code of conduct, internal policies, or any other workplace harassment policy must have a very clear guideline on how the ICU would function if complaints come from employees of other gender. That's what you see, that grievances of other genders will be handled by internal mechanisms and not exactly by the POSH law. There are no women employees in the organization, so POSH policy is not required. So POSH policy is not just only for women employees. The organization, even if you don't have any female employees, the organization, your employees must be still interacting with third parties, vendors, clients, even for example, housekeeping staff of the, co-working space that you are hired, a security guard. So there is still very high chance that you'll be still interacting with female employees, even if they are not female third party members, even if they are not really your employees. So in case you do, in case those people do experience sexual harassment from your employees, you still should have a complaint redressal process in place. For this, it is very important that you still have a POSH policy, even if you do not have any women employees in the organization. And as per the law, POSH policy is not it's not MAME, or the drafting of POSH policy is not based on if you have female employees or not. It's based on how many employees you have. So if you have more than 10 employees, it's mandatory for you to have a POSH policy in place. So having said that, how to draft a POSH policy, very important job. Like I said, it is the responsibility of the employer to draft the POSH policy, but there are times that even the HR takes care of it. Internal committee is not somebody who generally drafts POSH policy, but there are organizations who do delegate this task to internal committee after the internal committee has formed. So it's on a case-to-case basis, whichever is convenient and most effective for the organization, they can consider what works for them. How to draft a POSH policy? There is enough and more information available on the internet about POSH policy. A lot of the organization has published their policies on internet, which is openly available. So the easiest option is definitely to copy and paste, and make some fine tuning in the end to make sure that it does apply to your organization's unique structures. That's the easiest way, but there's also an option where you can either, have consult a legal professional, a lawyer, who can help you drafting the POSH policy, or even speak to an expert, even if the person is not really a lawyer, probably an external member or a POSH consultant, who can help you with, drafting a POSH policy. But there is a way that we also can help you with drafting the POSH policy. So this is a feature that we have made available for our internal committee members who are subscribed to our POSH for internal committee program. Give me a second before I, stop sharing and sharing a new window. Let me know if you can see my new screen. Okay, so this is how our IC tab looks like. This is available for all IC members who are subscribed to our POSH for internal committee program. One of the options or one of the types available is something called a POSH drafting tool, policy drafting tool. If you go click there, you would get something like a chatbot. Here, you will find a lot of questions that will be asked to you to make sure that the POSH policy is, in line with your organization's unique structure. If you do find a difficulty in answering those questions, you are also given descriptions or explanation on how to answer this question. So, for example, let's see, the first question is, would you prefer a gender neutral policy? And say I do, say I yes. It will even give me a notification on how I am deviating from the law and what I can do to be sure that I do not, non-comply, right? Then, of course, you will see more questions. Let's say, I know, does your organization have multiple branches? If I say yes, it'll ask me for the number of branches. Just for convenience, let me put no. Does your organization have an appellate committee? Like I said, it's something that the organization can consider having an internal appellate committee, but it's not really, definitely not necessary. Does the organization have more than 2 employees as internal committee members, apart from the presiding officer, which is not really mandatory? So I'm going for a no again here. What is the organization's process of lodging a complaint? I'm going to go for the basic filing a complaint. But if you go for, say, I have a dedicated inbox, email inbox to which employees can file a complaint, it will ask for your, the inbox. So based on your response, you can see a preview policy option, which you would be getting a very detailed POSH policy drafted as per your organization's requirement with all the details that you have entered. And you will also be allowed to make changes or edits in case necessary. So this is how we can help you with drafting a POSH policy. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it on the Q&A panel. We'll type it up as and when possible. So the next topic, which is part of the POSH compliance, is the internal committee constitution. I think I should reshare again. Give me just 1 second. Can you see my slide now? All right. So yeah, the next second step in POSH compliance is definitely the internal committee constitution. After you have a POSH policy in place, so let's discuss about internal committee a little more in detail here. So as per the POSH law, every employer of a working place shall, by an order in writing, this is a term that I would like you all to keep in mind because we will be discussing this again, constitute a committee to be known as the Internal Complaints Committee. So Internal Complaints Committee was the name given to it in the initial phase of the POSH law. A few years later, which was in 2018, there was an amendment by the POSH law, in the POSH law, which renamed Internal Complaints Committee to Internal Committee. The whole idea behind this was, before internal committee was more of a reactive board that would handle complaints when it receives it, but in the future, or at least at the later time, the amendment was made to make it clear that internal committee also has a responsibility to take proactive steps to make sure to prevent sexual harassment in the future. So IC to be constituted in every branch. In case you have multiple divisions, units, or branches of your organization, and if any of them have more than 10 employees, it is mandatory that you should have an IC in all these branches / divisions / units. Now let's look at how the internal committee is formed. You definitely would have a chairperson who is called the presiding officer, and this would be a senior women employee from your organization. In case you do not have a senior women employee in the organization, you can even consider having it from a different branch, unit, or a division. If you don't have that also as an option, you can even consider having it from a sister company. 2 members from the employees, apart from the presiding officer. It is preferable that they have some sort of experience in handling complaints or disciplinary actions, or have some sort of experience in working in the women's rights space. This is another very important role in the internal committee. You would have somebody called an external member or an external consultant or a third-party consultant from so this person should be somebody who is working from an NGO or an association that is associated with the cause of protection of women. or is an expert in the space of POSH and POSH law. It is also advisable to have a lawyer or advocate to be part of the to be part of the internal committee. Out of these, which is four members in total, minimum of one half should be women, is what the POSH law mandates. We do recommend the idea of having half of them to be women and the other half to be men, so that there's a good balance between in genders, and which would help in making sure that the internal committee is able to accept and receive perspectives of both the complainant or the aggrieved women and the respondent. The presiding officer and every member of the internal committee shall hold office for a period of 3 years from the date of their nomination. So after every 3 years, there should be a reconstitution of the internal committee. You can either have a total fresh nomination, as in replace all the members with new ones. You can also have a mix. You can retain a few members from the previous internal committee and have a few as a fresh nomination as well. This is, like I said, is a very important role in the internal committee, because this person who has no other relationship with the organization apart from being an external member, this is a person who would be ensuring that during the inquiry of a POSH complaint, objectivity and neutrality is maintained. That is, the internal committee is just going after truth and making sure that justice is served instead of being biased or trying to prefer any sides during the inquiry. This is why it's very important that the employer, whoever is hiring the external member, should set really high standards when selecting the external member. So in case there are a few sections or clauses where the IC member, any of the internal committee member, might become disqualified from being an internal committee member. First one is contravenes provisions of Section 16. Section 16 is what talks about maintaining confidentiality. So in case the person fails to maintain confidentiality of any complaint filed as per the POSH policy, the person will be disqualified immediately. If the person is convicted of an offense or an inquiry into an offense pending, or is already found guilty in any disciplinary proceedings, or a proceeding is ongoing. In addition, if this person, his is just expression, but it definitely does not limit by gender. If this internal committee member does abuse their position to continue being in the position of internal committee member, even that is a reason for disqualification. If the person is disqualified, it is necessary for the employer to go for a fresh nomination and train the person as soon as possible, so the person is ready to fill the absence, and that the functioning of the internal committee is not halted. So if you all remember, I did speak about something called an order in writing. So this is a documentation that the organization should have as soon as the internal committee is constituted. So the order in writing would change for change based on the setup or the establishment that you have. The order in writing for a private limited company would be different from a sole proprietorship. So if you would like to see how a board resolution, which is applicable for a private limited company, is to be written, you can find that in our blog section of the eLearn POSH website. I'll quickly show how that works. So if you go to our eLearn POSH website and go to the resources tab and click blogs, you would find a lot of blogs. And if you go to the search tab and go for board resolution, you would find a board resolution here for constitution of the internal committee, which is the sample template, which you can definitely use and fill. You would find a little more detailed one, which does authorize one of the HR members to be the employer, because it's not always practical to have the entire board come together and discuss and pass a resolution every single time there's a small change in the internal committee. So it is better to authorize one of the employer members to kind of handle the situation. So that part of the clause is also clearly discussed or clearly mentioned in another board resolution template that is available in the template library, which is part of the IC tab that I have been discussing before. And this IC tab, as I mentioned, is available for all these IC members who are subscribed to Elon POSH's POSH for IC program. I hope I was clear. If you have any questions, please feel free to, post it on the Q&A panel. I'll pass it on to Santosh, who will be handling the next sessions.
Hey, thanks, Maya. So I do have a lot of questions here. Let me just share my screen and also try and answer the questions. Just a second. Just a second. Okay, so I hope you're able to see my screen. I will also answer the questions that have come about. Um, so there are questions about Shebox. I will answer those in the next section. Immediately after this, we are going to talk about Shebox. How frequently or the duration one should amend their organizational policy. As long as you find a need for amending the policy, you can do it. Um, the law doesn't change very frequently. As Maya highlighted, the law changed only once during the last 12 years of POSH. By December, we'll complete 12. The change was only from internal complaints committee to internal committee. There were quite a few suggestions for amendments, both from the uh, individual private member bill as well as from the civil society and everyone. But nothing has come about in terms of discussion for the amendment. There was one private member bill that was tabled last year, but that didn't even was not even taken up for discussion. The parliament, of course, was dissolved, and now the new parliament, it obviously wouldn't go any further from there. So the law doesn't change, but there are a lot of case laws that change around this domain. So based on the case laws, judgments and everything, you can go ahead and amend the policy to make sure you are aligned in terms of the principle. But there is no mandatory guideline on how frequently you need to align it, but it's recommended that you review the policy and make sure you're staying current. If you're subscribed to our IC subscription, we do a free policy review. Whenever you want to review the policy, we can share it with our team. We have our own legal and experts on POSH who will review the policy and suggest changes if there's anything. So I hope I answered that question sufficiently. Is it the aggrieved term limited only to female or male also included? I think Maya covered this briefly. The aggrieved is only female. Even if you are a transgender, if you identify yourself as female, self-identification, then you would be considered as female. If not, it's only the law, POSH law, as a law itself names that uh, sexual harassment prevention, sexual harassment of women at workplace, prevention, prohibition, and redressal. So there itself, it's clear. It's only female who can be aggrieved. You can have gender neutral policy, as Maya suggested, but again, that's only if you want your organization to have a gender neutral policy. Otherwise, if you go purely by law, only women are covered by the POSH Act. If there are no women employees in the company, when number of employees are more than 10, then is it required to constitute an IC? Yes, absolutely. It was also answered during the presentation. Even if you don't have female employees, say, for example, you're running a supermarket with about 12 male employees who are managing the aisles. Some customer comes and one of your employees misbehave with them. The customer has the right to file a sexual harassment complaint, and as an employer, you're supposed to take action on the employee. For that, you need to have an IC so that you can investigate. Of course, it may not be practically possible in all times, but if you see there is a high amount of risk involved, then you need to definitely look at forming an internal committee, even though you don't have employees. My recommendation is to have a proper risk assessment and see how you can structure this. If there are no employees who are female, who are not in the senior position, probably you can even look at two external members who are women, or someone from your group company or some other branch can also be part of it. So we can look at different sections, but it is definitely important to form an AC. How many external members, how the women 50% would be satisfied, would be discussed on a case to case basis. This is just an overview of suggestions, right? Okay. What if something happens at a place away from office, not in our office hours, nothing related to work, say in a park on a Sunday evening, a colleague misbehaves with a woman. They might have met accidentally in the park or could be. Okay. So if it is, if you go into the law, you will find that the relationship that happened should have happened due to work, that is related to work, or it can have an adverse impact on the work. This particular incident that you've narrated, where something happened in the park with some third party women who just happened to meet in the park, I don't think that would anyway be related to the work that you do on a Sunday evening, or it would be related to the work in the future where the work is getting affected. So this particular case is not covered under POSH. This can be sexual harassment, which can be covered through the BNS section 75 or IPC 354. You can go to the police and file a case, but it is not covered under the POSH Act. I hope that's answered. Bystander intervention clause. If this enables to file complaint by a witness, complainant may not be okay with this, right? So bystander cannot file a complaint. Complaint can still be filed only by the women employee or with the consent of the women employee. What bystander can do, there are a few things that you can highlight in terms of what they can do that you can have in your clause. Even if a complaint is filed by anyone else to the IC, and if the IC decides to talk to the women employee who's the aggrieved, and the aggrieved says that no, I never filed a complaint. I'm okay. I'm his friend, and he can do whatever he wants, and no one else has to interfere, and it's not your job. Then IC has to just come back and continue with their work because it's not the case that they can handle. The aggrieved should be party to this. There is a case in Madhya Pradesh where the complaint was filed with the CM's office, and the CM's office forwarded it to the internal committee. The aggrieved woman was party to the whole inquiry where she said, yes, I will proceed with the complaint. And the court ruled saying that even though it was filed by someone else outside the office and then it came to the IC, but the women being party to the whole inquiry process, she consented towards that agreement. That is the case that is there. So there is a judgment or a case law also supporting that part. But unless the woman, aggrieved woman, is party to the complaint, it is not something that you can handle, right? So there's a question. Hi, Maya, can we change the POSH internal committee member during the mid of the year? Yes, definitely you can change. There's nothing that restricts you from changing. The recommendation is the maximum tenure of an IC member cannot be more than 3 years, but there's nothing like a minimum tenure. Lot of reasons where someone is moving out or some change, maternity leave, all that, you may have to change. Or you find a complaint against this person, no longer you find them fit to be part of the IC, then also you can change. The recommendation that Maya provided, where in the board resolution, you can authorize one of your senior HR professional to take those short-term actions until the next IC constitution happens, is something that's a good idea, where it makes the operations a lot more easier, right? Say, for example, a case happens against the presiding officer. Obviously, the presiding officer cannot be part of the IC anymore. So at that point, you need to have a change of the presiding officer, and that has to happen only by the employer's order in writing, right? So from that point of view, it is good to have some VP of HR or CHRO authorized to go ahead and give out those um, appointment letters for IC committee members. That is a good idea to have. So that's where you need to authorize them. But you can change the internal committee members during the year. Do we need to register to get the policy details from your website? So for I think it's about drafting the policy, right? So drafting the policy, it is part of our IC subscription. You need to buy the IC subscription. You can buy it from online, or you can contact our team at sales@succeedtech.com. We can provide that. In terms of guidelines on how to draft the policy, there are a lot of blogs that we have written on what should be part of the policy. All of that, you can use that. If you want to use our policy drafting tool, you can attend the session on 14th of November and take the certificate. So you'll also get your IC certification, plus you'll get the access to the policy drafting tool, which is for 3 months, and you can draft as many policies as you want. Okay. Can the external person on IC continue after the expiry of 3 years? So anyone can continue beyond 3 years as long as there is a rationale for it. So if there is a reason why you want to continue, you better have a proper documentation on why you can't change the person. Because the reason why they don't want you to have the same member for longer period is because it doesn't bring in the diversity. It gets into a particular rhythm, and probably it finds way to suppress cases in a methodical fashion and all that. So those kind of issues should not happen. But if you have a genuine reason why you cannot change the presiding officer or an external member, because there were no cases and this person is very knowledgeable and we couldn't find a suitable person within the budget that we want, and all that kind of rationale you write, and there is no conflict that you see someone would raise, then I think it is okay to have the documentation created and pass a board resolution again, or the order in writing, whatever you want to do it through. Because if you're a trust, then it would be board of trustees who would pass a resolution. Or if you're a single person company, she gave a list of people, right? So you just find the way to pass the order in writing and get that done. But without documentation, don't just consider the same person as reappointed by default. That's not the case. You need to reconstitute. There you give the rational justification, so that tomorrow, if there is a case against the bias or the same person continuing for too long, then you would have a reasonable justification there. I hope that answers. Okay. If any POSH related incident occurs outside the office premises, complaint should be filed either with the internal committee or at the office or nearest police station. If it is between the two employees, there are some situations where it is due to the work, or it can affect the work the next day because of it creating a hostile work environment, etc. Then you can have your employer handle the case under POSH. If it is an outsider complaining against your employee, then also there is a possibility that you might handle it. If it was like something like an interview where the candidate came into the office, or during a travel business event or something like that, where some client got harassed or whatever, those situations also can be handled by POSH. If it is not related to your employee who's accused, the respondent, then there is nothing that you can do. Even if your employee is harassed, you can provide the best support to file the complaint, but the complaint should be handled by the IC of the respondent. If the respondent is not related through work, then it would be the police station, right? Police station is always available, whether it's inside or outside. They have jurisdiction over everything, but you have jurisdiction over limited items. So that's the way it is structured. I hope that's answered. If not, you just put a follow-up question. I will definitely come back to it at a later time. How many maximum members should be there? There is no maximum limit, as long as you maintain 50% and at least two employees and one women senior employee as presiding officer, and one external member, which is a minimum of 4 in the IC, that is met, and 50% women, then there is no maximum limit. You can have even 50 or 60. There are organizations where we train about 120 IC members every year. So even 200 in some organizations. If it is large, you can have it, right? A small finance bank would definitely have a lot more. Can a woman employee serving in a private org have a legal knowledge and experience of handling cases and inquiry be external member in another organization? As long as the woman does not have any relationship with this organization, like serving as a client or a relative of the employer, like wife of the founder kind of a thing, or any kind of services that organization provides, that conflict is not there. You can fairly justify in case there is a case, then I don't think there is any reason why that person cannot be an external member. Even I know of a few HR directors in some organization, with the approval of their organization, of course, serving as external member in another small organization, as long as they are not related in any other way. Okay. Someone has mentioned, please take up the above. I assume that is answered because I've answered questions in sequence. As mentioned, POSH is compulsory even if there are no female employees. However, committee consists of one third female, actually 50% female. Yes, you need to have, even if there are no female employees, you need to have some mix to get the female population at 50% for the IC. There are ways to do it where you get a employee from your group company, branch offices, or other places. If nothing is possible, then fill it with external members and do a risk assessment if you want to have two external members to get that, but you still have to follow that rule. I hope I answered that as well. Can some external members be reappointed for further term? Yes, you can appoint the same external member. Um, is there a legal action taken on a member who has exploited his or her position? Of course, they can be disqualified. There can be penalty in case of certain misses up to 5,000. All that is there. But legal action in terms of confidentiality, misuse, and all that is definitely possible. Please explain disqualification of IC as contravention of section 16. I think Maya covered that in depth. Um, Confidentiality breach, in case they breach the confidentiality, they will be disqualified. I don't know if there is a follow-up on that. You can just post it. How would the inquiry procedure work for an organization having gender neutral policy if the complainant is male? Very good question. Absolutely. So the complaints have filed by a female employee would be handled as per POSH, everything as per the POSH process. If a complaint is filed by a male employee, obviously POSH Act does not apply for them. You would not even report it as a POSH case in your annual report with your district officer and everything. But you can handle it with the same way, the same team, but you will not call it as an internal committee. You will have it as a disciplinary committee or whatever that you have as per your code of conduct policy. But you will not use some of the powers provided by the POSH Act, like the powers equivalent to that of a civil court on three aspects, like summoning witnesses, summoning evidences, and all those kind of things. You cannot misuse them unless it is provided by your code of conduct, because there the service rules will apply. In a private organization, it's code of conduct policy and other policies that you would have that would apply. So you will consider that like a normal inquiry, but you won't call it as a POSH inquiry. It is a sexual harassment inquiry under the disciplinary procedures. Uh, that's the point. If you have questions, please do put a follow-up. I'll definitely answer that. Okay, there are quite a few questions. Okay, so I just want to be conscious of the time. I'll come back to all of those questions and answer all of them as we go through. There's a lot of content that I need to cover. I'll just answer probably two or three quick ones, and then I will move on. Is it necessary to form IC for companies registered under Companies Act, or is it even for shall? Everyone with more than 10 employees should have IC. If you're if you're a supermarket, if you're, say, a single person enterprise where you have 20 employees, logistics company, or not a company, but um, a courier service enterprise, you can still have 10 employees. All of that would still need to have IC. My sister company have same director and main unit already covered under POSH. So sister company need to be covered under POSH. We need to go into the specifics of this case. We can't um, have a general discussion. But if it is a separate legal entity, sister company, brother company, it is all the same. If it's a separate legal entity, then POSH Act is separate for them. So you should have an IC. But whether the same external member or same member can be there, it's based on how the structure of the company, how many female employees and all are there. That's something that you can consider. You may have the same IC as well. A lot of cases where global organizations would have two, three entities in India and have same IC to manage all of them. Just the presiding officer would be different. That kind of a structure is definitely possible. External member definitely can be the same. There's no problem at all, right? I hope I answered that sufficiently, but if it's not, just we can take it up as a follow-up at the end. Uh, should gated residential communities form an IC? Very, very good question. At this point, if you are in any way employed in the gated residential community, like your housekeeping staff or security, they are all employed, then you would form. But if you are outsourcing that to a third party, then that organization would obviously have their own responsibilities. You need to have your contracts checked to make sure that is taken care of. But the communities management committee, if they are not paid, if they are like doing an honorary position, and they are just administering the whole thing, but there is no employer-employee relationship as such, because they are just members of the community by virtue of just staying there, not because they've been appointed in any fashion, then that employer-employee relationship won't exist and POSH may not apply. But for the employees who are paid as salary, then if that is exceeding 10, then definitely you need to have an IC. We need to have a deeper discussion based on the structure. Of course, I just gave you an overview. I hope it answered. Okay, I'll just switch back to the content because there's a lot that is there, but I will definitely answer every one of those questions. I think there are about 20, 25 more questions. I'll not be able to answer them all right now, but before we conclude this session, I'll try to answer all of them, right? So with that, I will move back to the slides. I hope you're able to see my screen. Okay, the hot topic of the day, she-box registration. This is so what to say, huge in terms of a topic because it's also something that's controversial, a lot of issues and all that. So we may not be able to cover this completely in this session. So we have a separate session that's planned on 21st of November. We did mention that we shared this link for registration on chat. You can use the registration link and register if you wish to go deep dive, but I will try to do as much justice as I can through this session, right? Okay. So very briefly, what is SheBox? SheBox stands for Sexual Harassment Electronic Box. It's an initiative by the Ministry of Women and Child Development to provide a single window system. Anyone who's employed anywhere can file a complaint on anyone in any employer or any organization. Say, for example, an employee comes to your organization for an interview. One of your employees harassed that female employee. They want to file a complaint, but they don't know where your IC is. All they have to do is just go to SheBox, file a complaint there. They'll be able to choose the employer, the branch, and file a complaint. Then it comes to the IC so that the IC will handle the case and then inquire into it. So it gives an option for anyone to file a complaint, any women employee to file any women, not just employee, any woman to file a complaint against anyone related to workplace, right? So that's the purpose of SheBox. Is it really required that your employees should file the complaint on that portal? Definitely not. They can file internally through your own price process, just following the law. But this is just a provision that's provided by the government. So that gives the uh, action on some of the questions that I saw in the previous one. Is it mandatory to have SheBox and all that? So you jumped the gun. I'm just answering that question right now, right? In terms of SheBox, why should organizations register? So portal itself states that every organization should register. Of course, the portal is launched by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, who's a custodian of the POSH Act. So from that point of view, it is mandatory. From the ministry, they form the rules of the game. So they have stated that it's mandatory. The portal itself states a justification that as per the law, the employer is supposed to provide an option for filing a complaint. And for non-employees, there is no option that an employer can easily do. So that's why it is important for them to follow this process so that it's consistent across. So you better register there so that you are compliant with that particular section of the law, which is fairly reasonable. While there is no amendment in the law as such, because it's coming from the ministry, this is something that can be considered as made mandatory. In addition to that, it was also relaunched and revamped and everything due to the Orleana Fernandez versus State of Goa judgment, where the Supreme Court directed the organization to the government to form, even the state and central government, everyone, union territories and everyone, to form a method to file complaint. And so the union government for the entire country, they formed this SheBox. So that is also by the court law, right? And district offices in several districts, including Bangalore, Tumkur, or in Gurgaon, in Noida, all of these district offices have sent circulars and emails. Even the labor commissioners have sent questionnaires on whether you've registered and all that. So that is also driving the message that it is mandatory for you to register. So if you do not register, we put it in quotes, it may be treated as non-compliance in case there is a government scrutiny. You would have a lot of government organizations like the Labor Department and all that ask questions whether you registered. If not, you register right away, all that. There are a lot of things in Tamil Nadu also. There are district officers who have sent these queries. There are cases in Hyderabad where they've sent it. So it is important that you follow these directions and register. eLearn Posh from its side, we strongly recommend that you go ahead and register on the SheBox portal. We will cover in brief like what are the steps involved. We'll also share a couple of resources that can help you. We've done it on YouTube. We have shared those videos. We will also discuss that. I will try to answer as many questions as I can on this portal. Of course, a lot of questions we may not have direct answers because the portal itself is like right now fairly glitchy, and so a lot of issues do exist. There are ways we can get support from the ministry and the district officers and all of that. We'll also share some of those points today, right? So simple five-step process. First step, register the head office and the nodal officer. The head office is your main organization where your registered office. Then all the other branches would be considered as branch office. What you need to do as the first step is you register your head office and the nodal officer. Who's a nodal officer? Someone who's responsible for implementing compliance. Generally, it's taken care of by the legal counsel or the HR team member or someone from the compliance team. They would take care of this. They are the ones who they are the ones who are going to take care of this nodal officer position. It should be appointed by the employer, of course, to implement all of the POSH rules and all that. CHRO can be a nodal officer if they have the time to handle all of those. But that is one way you can actually identify a person in the organization who will be the nodal officer. Remember, the nodal officer should not be part of the IC, or the presiding officer should not be part of it, because they need to have a separate login account and access and all that. So it is recommended you choose someone who's different from the IC members. In case you have chosen the presiding officer to be IC member, right? The presiding officer to be the nodal officer, then in the email account part, you will have a conflict. The same person cannot have two separate accounts because there is a role for IC where they will also handle complaints on the portal. The nodal officer will not see the complaints, but they will manage the report and administration of the portal. So you need to have two separate members. Presiding officer is different, nodal officer is different. This is a new concept. It was not something that existed in the previous POSH implementations ever. Only since they formed the new SheBox, we had this question of nodal officer. So you need to be careful on who that person is going to be. Once you register the nodal officer and the head office, then you need to go to the next step, which is it has to be approved by the district officer. Once it's approved, then you will go for registering the internal committee, that is a presiding officer and the members. This is the important step where you add the IC members and your presiding officer. The presiding officer will get access to the portal. They will also be able to see the complaints filed by others on the portal, right? So this is where you give a channel for your external non-employees to go ahead and file a complaint so that you can handle that. Uh, Once you add your IC for the head office, if you have branch offices, and you might also have ICs for those, you need to add those branch officers and their nodal officer as well. So that nodal officer will handle complaints of that branch or handle the IC administration of that branch. So they will add the IC members for that branch, and from there it goes on further, right? So the nodal officer's responsibility is one, to add IC, two, to add the branches and the respective nodal officers for those branches. The respective nodal officers will add IC members of their branch, and that's it. They may not have any sub branch because if it is taken care of from the head office, they don't have anything else to do. They just have to add their own respective branch IC, and they will, the nodal officer of the respective branch will also take care of the filing of the annual report. It might seem complicated, but it's fairly simple as shown in the picture. The head office nodal officer is a key person. That's the first step. Once you do that, you register the branch and the IC. The branch office nodal officers will take care of their respective IC. Once this registration part is all completed and each time the district nodal officer has approved it, all you have to do is just monitor and update the complaints. The presiding officer will update the complaints. Nodal officer will just have to monitor, and annually you will have to file the report and annual report and training. So this also opens the new thing, which is filing annual reports and training updates on the SheBox. Not many have started doing it because the portal itself has a lot of problems. When we file an annual report of the previously filed annual report, it opens it for the whole world, not just your employees. So there are some confidentiality issues there and all that. So you need to be conscious that this is still work in progress. So for now, what we recommend is registering the nodal officer, head office, and registering your IC. If it is approved, then you're all set in terms of the compliance, what is mentioned in the portal. Anything else like annual report, I think we can wait for some more instructions. Hopefully by the end of the year, where it will become due, you will have more information from the ministry, right? So I just wanted to share a couple of resources here. We've done a couple of videos on the Shebox. Let me share those videos on chat box. Let me just push it here. Okay. Okay. So those are the two videos. In case you want to copy it, you can use it. There are a few people who are putting questions on the chat. Please do place those questions on the Q&A panel so that I can answer. But because it came right now, I happened to see it accidentally. So let me try to answer. Will the system of nodal officers work in government? Example, a GST office, will it have many divisions? For the government part, they already took care of it from the government side, where they appointed the nodal officers at the top level, and then based on that, their respective branches, they took care of it. This is required only from the private office point of view. For the government, it is already taken care of from the government, and they should have done it. If you don't have it, then please contact the appropriate person in your organization. Go and check if you have your office already registered, because you will be able to do that while filing the complaint when you log in. But in case if it is not, then you need to contact your superiors and find out how this nodal office registration is taken care of in the government side. But what we are talking about is more from the private organization point of view, where you need to file, go through this head office registration, and then from there drill down. If at any point you find that approvals are not provided, right? Yeah, where I registered, but I never got my account and password, then write to the respective district officer. 2 or 3 times you write to the district officer. If you don't get a response, then write to the tech support who are provided here. Because if you directly go to the tech support, they will say the same answer, that write to your district nodal officer and then come back to us. Then we will be able to handle it in case you don't get a response, right? So that's the way they handle it. So it is important that you file the first register your concern with the district nodal officer. How do I find the district nodal officer? You have it on the Shebox portal itself. Let me just stop the share and share my entire screen. Okay. Let's Okay, I'll open a new window on Shebox. So on Shebox portal, you would have resource directory where you have district nodal officer. You just have to select the state for which you want to do it. And you will find the district nodal officers for every state. You'll have the email addresses, write to them and they will help you. In case you don't find a response from them, then 2 times you follow up, have that as a documentation that you have really tried to follow up. I'll tell you why, because later point, there are some notices that are being sent to um, individual employers. You need to have those documentation so that you can say that, okay, we've tried, but the system didn't allow us. So at least for that documentation part, you can do this. And you'll get some support from them. If you don't get, even after multiple reminders, write to tech support-shebox@gov.in. I found this email address from this, and we've always had responses from them as well. Um, Not all the time favorable where the answers are there, but at least they would try to say that there is some work or something is happening, or the district nodal officer will handle this or something like that. As I shared the 2 videos, that will guide you through step-by-step process on how to register, right? Without the registration part, I will go into the questions that are posted on the Q&A panel so that we can see if there is something that we can answer, right? Okay, so mm, Okay, let me see where I left. What about here? How long can they associate themselves? This is all related to the previous one. Do we need to constitute IC for each separate branches? Very, very good question. Let me just answer that part. Uh, See, as per the law, by the letter of the law, you need to have IC in every branch in every district which exceeds more than 10 employees. That's the pure letter of the law, completely aligned with the spirit as well. But the spirit of the law is to make sure you don't make the complainant run around for filing their complaint. If that is the objective, if you can provide an easier way to complain, like say, for example, an online complaint option or an email option, or you give access to the IC, because not just filing a complaint, even access to the IC, which is a lot more simpler and easier, it'll make it better, right? From the spirit of the law. My take on this is, first, at least the least that you can do is to satisfy the spirit of the law first. Then try as much as possible to also satisfy the letter of the law, not the other way around, where you satisfy the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law is destroyed. So, from that point of view, at least make it easy for the employees to reach out to the IC members to ask concerns, get clarity so that they can take help, so that it's easy. That's why they want to have it in every place. But if you have a way where you have a representative from each branch, but the overall IC is there at an organizational level, that is also a reasonable option, not bad. At least, because logistically it may not be possible. I'll tell you an example. We work with a small finance bank which has about 22,000 employees located across the country, each branch having about 8 or 5 kind of employees, but it's distributed in every rural area, say in the entire southern belt and probably the eastern belt, right? So in that case, obviously they cannot have IC in every branch. So they have a hub and spoke model. They have a central IC for the whole country, and then they also have some ICs for each of the regions. And so it makes it easier for the employees to reach, but they also make sure they prevent sexual harassment from happening. So look at what is practically possible and then set it up. At least make sure you don't make the complainant run around for filing a complaint, right? I hope that answered that question sufficiently. If you have follow up, please do share. We will definitely be there. Is complaint can raise the sexual harassment through she team against respondents? Of course, even your employees can raise on SheBox. There is nothing stopping them from raising the complaint on SheBox, but it need not be through SheBox. You must already have a process internally. They can also follow that. If we have a gender neutral policy, then can we consider that as a POSH complaint? I'm not sure which one. Um, Probably I might have missed the previous question, uh, context on that question. If you have a gender neutral policy, complaint from male cannot be a POSH complaint. Complaint from female can be a POSH complaint. Or anyone who's identifying themselves as a female will be a for POSH complaint. But others, male complaints would go to the disciplinary committee or the same committee acting as a disciplinary committee. Okay. Sorry. But not many questions on SheBox as such. Let me see if there's anything on chat. If the org provides vehicle facility to all the employees service, this is third party. What if some case happens during third party? It's based on how you can structure your contract with the third party, whether the responsibility of POSH rests with you or whether they have to do some training for their employees and all that. But still, as a principal employer, you will have some responsibilities. How much it is and how is based on how you want to support your employees. If something has happened, you should find out a way to provide that support to your employee. The action that you can take on the third party is fairly minimal, but it will definitely be governed through the contract that you have with them. I hope that answers your question, Mahima. Can nodal officer also be an IC committee member? We do not recommend, because they need to have individual IDs, so it may not be possible for them to have it as the have them as the IC member. Presiding officer, definitely not. But IC member, it might be possible, but you can do alias email addresses and all that to manage that. How many years ICC members can remain the same? As per the law, it's 3 years. Anything more, you need to have rationale and justification so that if questioned tomorrow, you'll be able. Can a man, non-trans person, but likes to identify as a woman or a queer, sometimes complain to IC? Very good question. So if a person has the certificate for transgender, then that question is like clear where they are certified as female and so they can complain. If a non-trans person, if they are not a trans person, then you should consider their cisgender, and that would not be a POSH complaint. That would be a sexual harassment complaint. So that should be handled by the disciplinary committee. I hope that answered. So the answer is no, they cannot file under POSH. Mm, If organization has 40 workplaces, each workplace has 10 or more employees, this is mandatory for organization to constitute. As I said, go by the spirit of the law. If it is practically possible, do it. If not, do it at a hub and spoke level. Make sure it is easily accessible so that the employees don't find it like too difficult to reach out to the IC. Okay. There are a few. For how many years? So there are people who are saying, please see my question in Q&A section. I'm trying to cover that on the Q&A, but I'm trying to cover questions on the she box. Can nodal officer be an IC member? We don't recommend that because IDs has to be different. Can HR be on POSH committee? All for female. HR can definitely be POSH, POSH committee member. There is nothing that's stopping the HR from being a POSH internal committee member. As long as they're not the ones who are also taking action on the employee in case the recommendation is provided by the IC. So the employer and employee should be different. If the HR is like a CHRO who's also going to be the one who's going to take action on the employee, they cannot be in the IC to also judge them, right? So these two roles should be separate. So there is another view within the organization. One does the inquiry and recommends. There is another who's going to take the action. The same person should not be doing this. If that differentiation is there between that individual HR and the HR who's going to take action, then it is fine. There is nothing wrong. Nothing in the law which states that HR cannot be part of IC. Okay. Assistant manager can be the member. I'm not sure. I think it's the answer to that. Yeah, if they're not the one who's going to take action, then definitely they can be. Even the CHRO can be a IC member as long as the employer responsibility then resides with, say, the founder or the board member or whoever, right? As long as this differentiation is there, anyone in HR can be part of IC. After post registration, we need to be provided with the training in the organization. If yes, who can provide this training? It's HR or NGO. That's the exact portion that we're going to move into. I will move into the section of that training. Employee awareness. So let me just move forward, and I think that should answer that question. I will mark this as answering live through this section, right? Okay, so awareness is one of the key aspects because that's the only way you will prevent sexual harassment from happening. And that happens on three aspects. One is the POSH policy, that you have a policy and this is my stance as an organization. So this is what we do. The next one is you need to build awareness about your internal committees so they know that this is the person I need to reach out to, or this is the team that I need to reach out to if I have a complaint. Then the third part is sensitization. Even without all the policy and internal committee, I should be sensitive so that I don't do anything that's going to result in harassment for anyone, right? So those are the parts that you need to consider in case of your awareness. As long as you build awareness for these three aspects, you are good from the awareness point of view. Methods of building awareness, you can do trainings and awareness sessions. It can be classroom sessions, webinars, you can do e-learning, mailers. There is nothing in the law that states that you need to do only in this particular method. Anything people say that cannot be done this way and all that, it's only the hearsay, but there is nothing in the law which says one method or the other should be presiding over the other, right? Of course, the most effective would be the classroom sessions because there can be a lot more interactivity. The trainer can answer questions. All of those are definitely there. But if you want to do it at scale, if you want to do it at a lower cost with a lot of reduction of logistic effort, then e-learning can also be used. Webinar generally is a check in the box kind of an activity because you don't track individual understanding. As long as the learner is interested, matured enough to sit through a webinar and understand, it might be effective. But otherwise, webinar would be like someone would log in and let the other person talk, let me just move on, right? You can also do mailers, but then the effectiveness, the interactivity, and all that will not be there. In um, in in the California law, similar sexual harassment law that is there in California, it is mandatory to have an interactive session. Same is the case with New York and New York City as well, where you need to have interactive sessions if it's an e-learning, and you also should have a provision where they can reach out to someone in case they have questions. As long as you can provide that, even emailer would be fine, e-learning would be fine, as long as you can have interactivity in that training, right? But nothing like that is there in the Indian law. What we provide through eLearn Posh is a very interactive session. So we feel that that will help. And we also provide a lot of other options for support, like posters and other things. For IC members, we also provide further answering questions through tools and all that. So that is also there, right? Uh, Another thing on awareness is you need to display a few things in conspicuous location. One is the POSH policy. Generally, it's put up in the notice board, cafeteria notice boards, or at the reception, posters across the floors, internal committee member contact points so that you find it easy to reach out, right? So these are the three things that you have to build awareness about, the same points that you need to actually put up here as well, right? Then at the time of onboarding, uh, generally you also should do an employee training at that point. And there's also a practice that you can have a signing of a declaration saying that I understand the policy and all that. So there's nothing that's mandated, but these are steps that you can take towards compliance, one or all, whichever works for you, you can do it. The law mentions about posters. So the law mentions about the trainings or awareness sessions, sensitization sessions, whatever you would name it. So these are something that are there, but it doesn't say this is the only method that you need to do. So it can be done by any of these methods. So how can you do these? There are several ways to do it. One, you can do e-learning, you can get consultants to do it, you can do your own HR. There is nothing in the law which states that only a consultant can do this training. You don't have to take eLearn Posh's service to do this training. It is a responsibility. Look at it that way. Forget about compliance part. It's a responsibility to build that awareness. So even if HR can just spend time and train the employees, you can definitely do that. You just need to sensitize them. What are the do's and don'ts? What's the difference between intent and impact? How you deliver? All of those parts are important. What consultants or experts in that field would do is they would bring in the domain expertise, they would understand the psyche, they would understand the cases, they would explain how another person could be affected, even though it might be the prevailing culture in your organization, but this can also result in a bad experience for someone who's joining the organization new. So we need to be sensitive. How we handle all of that is something that you need to cover. So that's where consultants or experts from outside would come and play a role, right? But otherwise, for the question that I was asked, there is no need to just go from an NGO or an outsider alone. You can also go for your own HR or someone to train, but training at scale, training effectively is very important. If you look at it, you can definitely look at an expert, right, who can actually deliver that session. So the next part is how can eLearn Posh help with awareness? We do have several things as a part of our program. Let me just quickly um, take you through that, right? We have a learning portal where we deliver our Posh training. This is one of those. We have branded it as eLearn Posh, but of course, this logo, the color, everything, we can brand it as yours. We can connect with your single sign-on. We can connect with your APIs, or we can even deliver this package as a SaaS or a SCOM package so that you will be able to deliver this training, right? So in case you want to look at employee training, then you would have um, the course available multiple languages. We have it in English, Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, and Gujarati. So all of these languages are available. So they can choose the course in any one of these languages. We also have a new live action series that is coming about. On 14th of November, we would be launching that. So that program covers through real life scenarios. We've done it really professional. If time permits, at the end, I will show a trailer of that, but that's not the priority here. But you can also look at that as an option. Under the IC tab, as a part of our IC subscription, we also provide POSH posters, where you'll find posters in multiple languages. If you want to download a particular poster, you can download it and use it, send it as an email, put it on your intranet, or just print it and put it in your organization. So if you go through multiple pages, you will find several posters here. I think so. There are multiple languages and posters that are available. So you can use those as well, right? 10 per page, and we have about 10 pages. So about hundreds of posters there as a part of this portal, right? So this is also available for the employees. For the managers, we have a separate sensitization program. It's free as a part of our employee subscription, which is also available for educating your managers, where we talk about what are the things a manager should do, not do. What if someone reaches out to them with a complaint? How you document those complaints, anything that reaches out to you, anyone that reaches out. What are the things that you can say, what you should not say, all those kind of points. We cover that in a brief 30-minute session for the managers. As I said, it's a free session for managers if you've bought the employee subscription for the same person, right? So that is something that's part of our employee awareness program. We also have a lot of micro learning courses that are available right now, where we can also deliver through 2 or 3 minute sessions on a weekly or a monthly basis. You can send out emails to your managers or employees to build awareness about the POSH process. So if you don't want to spend a long 1 hour training during the once in a year training, you can do a short 15-20 minute kind of a training, and then you can also do micro learning through the year. That is also an option that is available through our platform. If you are interested, please reach out to support, so sales@succeedtech.com. Our team will provide you more details about the program. We'll be happy to take the conversation from there. Right? Now that I've completed this section, let me go to the Q&A panel and try to answer a few more questions. See, it is possible that some questions I may not be able to answer right away, but please do have some patience. Towards the end of the session, I will make sure every question is answered. Does POSH Act require separate ICC for each branch, or one ICC enough for all? As I mentioned, the spirit of the law is to make sure it is easy for the complainant or anyone who needs IC to reach out to them. As long as you meet the spirit, the letter of the law, as much as possible, you try to meet it, like the letter of the law. If in case you're not able to, try to put a structure where it is not too deviant from the letter of the law, but at least make sure it is easy for the complainant to reach out. If you have further questions, we need to look at the case-to-case basis. If you go purely like absolute compliance, I want everything to be taken care of, then the way to do is every branch which has more than 10 employees, you should have an IC, and it should have its own presiding officer. External member can be shared, and employees can be part of the same organization, same branch. If an interviewee misbehaves with the interviewer, who is a female employee, what will be the procedure in this case? Okay, very good question. So the question here is, what if an interview is male and he misbehaves with a female employee, male or female, doesn't matter. He misbehaves with a female interviewer, the one who's conducting the interview. Then obviously you don't have jurisdiction over the interviewee. The max you can do is reject them and the candidate, but that's not going to be any punishment, because they would dare to misbehave only if they don't care about that job, right? So obviously the jurisdiction is not with you for the interview candidate. So, but your employee is affected, so you need to support them as well. So in this case, the jurisdiction will be with the police, because he's just a common person who's come for an interview. So your employee can file a police case, and as an organization, the IC can provide the best effort support to go ahead and file the complaint. You will not have any jurisdiction on the case, but you can provide the best effort support for your employee, because that's still your responsibility, right? Okay. Who has to update the rational details to continue the POSH internal committee for more than 3 years? It's the responsibility of the employer. They have to make sure it is fully updated, right? I think the first question on Gbox is answered, so I will just close that as well. What about the presiding officer if no female employee is there, senior female employee? Then, as I said, you can go for an external member who's senior. If you don't have any senior female employee, you can look at the branch office. You can look at other ways to source that female who's matured enough to be part of the IC. If not, go for an external member. Does company is liable to follow POSH policy or act if their mode of work is work from home or remote? Very, very good question. There's nothing in the law which states work from home or remote, but it does have a concept called the workplace definition has um, any place that is arising out of or due to employment. So that includes work from home as well. So POSH Act will apply even if every one of your employees is remote, it would still apply. So I hope that answers. So even if you are remote, you should have a POSH policy. If you look at our uh, portal, we've also built it to support a lot of organizations who are completely remote. You have IC members listed on the dashboard. We'll also have the policy listed on the dashboard in case that organization has it. Then it'll be like even if they are completely remote, they will still be able to access and use the course and the portal, and all the compliance requirements are met directly by the training, right? Okay. Can HR be part of IC as long as they are not the employer on record, or as long as they are not taking the employment related decisions, promotion, termination, or any HR action, they can definitely be part of IC because the recommendation should not go to the same person who gave the punishment, right? So who's giving out the punishment. So that's the thing. Even external member cannot be part of IC committee more than 3 years. Uh, Without a proper order in writing, they cannot be. Even if you're issuing an order in writing, make sure you document the rationale. The responsibility of documenting the rationale is with the employer. The employer has to say why they cannot choose another person or why they would want to continue with the same person and how they are handling all the conflicts, kind of a documentation you do as much as possible. So in case tomorrow someone questions, you will have this taken care of. Okay, how long can a committee continue with existing members? A single committee can continue only for a maximum of 3 years. Anything beyond that, you need to reform the committee. Okay, this is already covered. Uh, is there any question related to the is any one of the POSH committee member can be a nodal officer? See, as I said, as long as you have an alias email address, even the presiding officer can be a nodal officer. But the problem is the portal has a restriction where the same presiding officer and the same person cannot be the nodal officer. Any other employer responsibility, if you look at it, while the IC's responsibility is this internal committee. So the employer-employee segregation, we recommend that you have someone else as the nodal officer. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. You can have alias email addresses and continue. Okay. I didn't see any other question on the Q&A panel related to employee awareness. I don't know if there's anything on the chat section. Let me just see. Can you please send all the links that you sent here to the WhatsApp group? We look at this side accordingly, what all to opt for. I don't know if you're talking about the external member WhatsApp group. That may not be applicable for all, but we will send these links as a part of the final communique for all of the people who participated or attended or registered for the session, right? That's something that we can do. If a contractor is having more than 10 employees on his rolls, uh, then does it require form his separate IC committee? Uh, so contractor, because of the relationship of contractor, the principal employer has certain responsibilities, but the contractor will be based on the agreement that you have with the employer, the main employer, how they structure the agreement, who's responsible for training and awareness. If there is anything that's enforced through the contract, then you're responsible. Even otherwise, you have employees and for whom you're responsible for. To avoid all other situations there, we recommend you have some kind of a training or awareness and sensitization for your own employees. Whether they are working in your place or some other place, it still doesn't matter. You need to sensitize and you need to train. That responsibility is there. But how the contract works through this, will be based on how the agreement is structured. But otherwise, by default, if you look at it, anyone with more than 10 employees on their roles has a responsibility to do it. So that's how you should go about as well. Okay, so the next part, I'll move on to IC capacity building. I hope I've answered most of the questions. There are a lot of questions. I'll come back to all of them as we go through. I just want to make sure we complete all the sections before we are done with this 2 hour period, right? We have another 20 more minutes, so I'm very conscious of that, so that everyone gets the 2 hours worth their time, but others who want to have more, they can stay back and get all the questions answered. I will be there to answer all the questions. Next part is IC capacity building. What is the role of the internal committee? So if you look at the role of the internal committee, you would have structured, you would have registered on the SheBox portal. Now you have the committee, you have even built awareness. Internal committee might have a set of rules or roles that they need to perform, right? So the first set of responsibilities generally is to draft and implement the POSH policy. This is something that organizations enforce on the internal committee to do it. Is this the responsibility of the internal committee? May not be. It's a responsibility of the employer. But in general, because IC committee is the expert in this POSH law, it might also fall on the internal committee to do it. Also, because we have external members who are also legal professionals, they might have some responsibility coming from there, right? So that is one thing that you need to look at, where POSH policy implementation can become a responsibility of the internal committee member. Right? Meet periodically to review POSH compliance. So the law doesn't say how frequently you need to meet, but there is a notification from the government which said all government internal committees should meet on a quarterly basis, because that is also a workplace and government feels that way. Most of the POSH experts, including we at eLearn POSH, um, we believe that it is important um, to have that quarterly meeting for all the internal committees. Is that written in the law? No, but it is important to meet, because internal committee is not just a reactive committee only when the case happens. It's also a proactive committee, as Maya mentioned. So it is important to have that quarterly meeting to discuss the steps, how to improve the work environment, safety, all of those you can discuss, and actions taken, whatever steps that were planned out in the previous one, all of that can be discussed. Document the minutes and then keep that as a part of your POSH file, right? This is something that you can do. Take proactive steps to prevent sexual harassment, where, say, for example, you need to put up a few CCTV camera where there's a dark area, there are complaints of some misbehavior happening there, though there is no complaint officially filed, then you can take some steps there. If you feel some lighting is low or some provision can be made where employees can feel safe, all those can be done. So that's something that's part of the IC's responsibility as well, where you can take proactive steps. I'm just giving a few examples, but of course, there are plenty that if you want to look at steps that an IC can take. In case someone wants help in filing the complaint, IC can also assist them, because it is also a responsibility of the internal committee. If a complaint is filed, then IC is responsible for conducting the inquiry, documenting the proceedings of the inquiry. There are a lot of things that you need to learn, which if you want to know more about, you can join our session on the 14th of November, and you would find the session on internal committee training that would be available. They need to maintain confidentiality throughout the complaint. If there is a complaint inquiry that's completed, then you need to also submit the recommendations to the employer. There are a few timelines that we'll discuss now, right? Annually, they're also responsible for preparing the report and submitting it to the employer. The employer will then forward it to the uh, respective district officer or to the ROC, right? Okay. So powers of the internal committee, as mentioned in the law, it is powers equivalent to that of a civil court on a few things. Initiating an inquiry on a complaint, only on a complaint, not without it. So which means suo motu is something that you cannot do. It has to be on a complaint. Summon witnesses and parties before the committee to give a statement. Summon evidences that needs to be examined if it is necessary. For example, if a female employee files a complaint that someone misbehaved in the corridor, they may not have access to the CCTV footage. Obviously, they cannot go and fetch the footage on their own. But internal committee with its powers can summon the the security team which has the footage, ask them to provide that. That is something that we are talking about, right? How much you can enforce that power on the third party, fairly limited, but you can still quote this power that you have the authority vested by the POSH Act. Most times, if it is a reasonable request, organization, say for example, you have a team which is going for a team dinner and there you want to fetch your CCTV footage, you can request through this POSH Act via the internal committee. We want to review the footage. Organizations, if there is nothing to hide, they would show. If it is not, then go through the police and get this CCTV footage done. But you can use these powers for the POSH inquiry purposes, not for any other reason. Of course, if you do, then it might go to the appeal or a court. But within the limitations, these are very reasonable powers to conduct very fair inquiry, right? Post inquiry, obviously, the power also includes recommending actions to the employer. And if you look at the law, it also reads that the employer shall implement the actions recommended within a period of 60 days, right? So that is something it's saying. In case of inquiry, the first step is timeline part, where from the date of last sexual harassment, last act of sexual harassment in case of series of harassments, or from the date of sexual harassment, within 3 months, you must receive a complaint. If in case you internal committee feels there is a reasonable or there is a reason why the person could not file a complaint within 3 months, with their own limitation, they can extend it for another 3-month period with documentation of the reasons, of course. And then within 6 months, they should receive. Any complaint after 6 months, you cannot receive as an internal committee. There are judgments and case laws which prevent you from taking up those complaints. So don't take any complaint beyond 6 months. 3 months is the direct timeline. 3 months is the extension that IC can take if they find reason. Then they can take the complaint up to 6 months. Beyond 6 months, you can't. From the day you receive the complaint, within 7 working days, the IC has to forward the complaint to the respondent. And from there, 10 working days, the respondent has to reply back with the response to the IC. From then, IC can decide whether they want to go for conciliation or inquiry. Conciliation in case the complainant requests for it, or inquiry in case they don't, right? So in that case, you would have to complete the entire inquiry within a period of 90 days from the date you receive the complaint. And from that 90-day period, or whenever you conclude the inquiry, within 10 days, you should submit the recommendations to the employer. Employer has 60 days to take action on the complaint from the day you submit, right? These are the timelines. There are a lot of nuances like confidentiality, how to maintain, what are the principles of natural justice, how do you balance that? Because anything that you take as an action, it might result in a significant employment decision like a warning or a termination or a suspension or something like that. So it is important to follow the procedures that are listed, because the appeal can go to the court or even further, right? So it is important to know all these nuances. IC has to go through trainings to understand how reasonable person standard should be looked at. What is harassment to me may not be harassment to you. Then what is really harassment? Whether this particular case falls under harassment. That kind of a question can always exist. So you need to understand that. Sexual connotation, whether it is there or not, manager screams at all the female employees, but a lot more friendly with male employees. That is not sexual harassment, because that's just gender discrimination, but not sexual harassment. So you need to understand what is sexual connotation, how it is looked at from the law point of view, right? So all those points, inquiry procedures, what all you need to do, preponderance of probability, because it's a civil law, and the different case laws that are there to guide you through the process, documentation of the inquiry, how do you do it, recusal from the inquiry, bias and conflict of interest and all that, conciliation process, evidence collection, interim measures. There are a lot of things that are required for the IC to understand and know. So that is where we feel it is important that IC members are trained sufficiently. How we can help with the IC capacity building. Let me just go to our portal. So we have a very strong internal committee member training that we have, which provides various topics, each one of them about 15-20 minutes. It's more than 110, it's about 200 minutes now. So we have all the topics covered on handling the complaint, jurisdiction, sexual connotation, principles of natural justice, virtual inquiry, how to conduct it, annual report filing. Everything is covered in depth with activities, scenarios, and animation, right? So this is something that's there, part of our IC subscription. In addition to that, we also run 3 live webinars. One such webinar is happening next month on 21st November. You can pay 599 and subscribe to that webinar, or you can also go take our IC subscription where you get the e-learning plus all the IC tools, including the recordings of all the webinars that we've conducted in the last 5 or 6 years, right? So this is like a huge repository of webinars that we've conducted, various speakers from our team in-house, external speakers, legal professionals, experts who have conducted these sessions. All of these are also available as a part of the um, IC subscription. In addition to that, we have a template library where all the templates are there, anything from in board resolution template to inquiry templates, contracts, conciliation templates, agreement templates, external member appointment letters to IC member appointment letters. All of these are available under the template library. So you want to file an annual report, you can search and you'll find the covering letter and the annual report template. Or if you want to do conciliation, you will find the templates for conciliation, how to seek interest in conciliation. All of these templates, the email templates, will all be available as a part of the IC subscription. As Maya mentioned, we also have a policy drafting tool. We have a knowledge base of all the judgments and case laws related to POSH. Everything that you can find here, like bystander intervention or confidentiality related judgments, principles of natural justice related judgments. If you go into any one of those judgments, you will find the crux of the case, what are the learnings from there on the meaning of the employer, what do we understand and all that. In case there is a differing view that we have or maybe another case has, even that we would have as Elon Posh's opinion or differing opinion from another judge or something like that. So we would also cover that. So this is something that's part of the knowledge base. We also have all the acts and rules and notifications. We have FAQs. Any question that you might have, 90% of those questions would be answered in our knowledge base. You will have that very detailed answers for each one of those questions. We will also categorize it. You can also use a search to find out how you can, whether you want to have a gender neutral policy or how you want to structure the IC in case you don't have female employees. All that can be done. If you don't have a question answered, you can ask through Ask an Expert, which means our team member, legal or based on the domain that you ask the question, we'll also have an expert answer that question through the tool itself. So that is also available through Ask an Expert, which will be answered generally within 24 hours, right? We also have a complaints management system where the employee can file the complaint. The IC can handle it, all the confidentiality, banking level, security, OTPs, and everything is taken care of. Your reports can be generated within minutes using this tool. We'll share a video probably on how the complaint management system is structured, but it's a very powerful tool to use for your POSH compliance. We have all the district officer contact details. Once we have SheBox fully structured, this may not be required, but we have it right now for all the districts. We have external member directory where we provide the list of external members. I think Maya would have covered that during the constitution, where we have external members who can help you. We don't provide external members because we strongly believe that it's a conflict of interest if a service provider also provides external member. We always believe that external member should not provide any other services, and a service provider should not be an external member. Based on Ruchika Singh Chabra versus Afran's case also, there should be no other relationship between the external member and the service provider. That's why we don't do it, but we have external members who are there on the directory, and it's a free service. You can go online even to elearnposh.com and you can contact any of the external members. They might also provide some of the competitive services, which is fine. But we just want to have a channel where you can reach out to the external members. That's one of the ways where we collaborate with the community. We also have a community of external members where we answer questions and provide support to those external members for no charge or cost, right? We have a POSH audit tool where you can conduct your internal audits. You have an IC minutes register where you can have minutes of your quarterly meetings that you conduct can be also stored here, right? So these are all tools available for the IC if you look at it to build IC capacity. Plus, we also support them and hold them on any questions that they may have, even by getting on calls throughout the year of subscription. It's a very nominal subscription if you look at it. And so that's about the IC capacity building. Now that I've concluded that section, let me go into the Q&A panel and see if there are questions posted there. Can you explain process right after receipt of the complaint? I think I explained very briefly, so let me just touch on that again, right? So once you receive the complaint, obviously the law states 3 copies and all that. If you have it on email, that is also fine. IC should have a mailbox or something that people can send it. That's also fine, right? So once you receive the complaint, the process is to forward that complaint to the respondent, ask them for their response on the complaint. Why do we need to do that? Because it's principles of natural justice. The person should know what the complaint is about, who filed the complaint, so that they can also present their case. Then the respondent has 10 days um, to file their response. Within 7 days, you have to do it to the respondent. Within 10 days, they have to file their response. Once you receive the response, you forward it to the complainant saying, okay, this is what the respondent is saying. What's your view? Do you want to continue with an inquiry or conciliation would work? You can offer that. Or if the employee comes back saying that, no, I don't want to have a big case, I just want to settle it, so let's go for a conciliation, then you go for conciliation. If the employee says that the aggrieved states that no, I definitely want to inquire, I want to put a stop to this and all that, then you go for an inquiry. Go deep into all of that, conduct all the cross examination, all the process. You can attend the session next one on 14th of November, the Children's Day, where we will go deep into the inquiry process. After the inquiry, you will have the report filed after within 10 days after closing the inquiry. After that 60 days, the employer has to take action. I hope I answered that question. If you have any specific point on that, I would definitely look at that. I have one query regarding POSH training. For conducting POSH sessions with an organization, does the trainer need to be certified under the government recognized POSH certification program? Can internal personnel like HR or professional or department head complete a certified POSH trainer course and then conduct the session for the employee? Okay. So let me be honest. There is no certified body by the government who can go ahead and certify trainers, right? Everyone is self-certifying themselves as a body. Even eLearn POSH is not a certified body. We are empaneled by the ministry to conduct POSH trainings, but we are not eligible to certify someone as a trainer. That is not something the government also recognizes as. So there is no certifying body, there is no recognized body to certify someone as a trainer. We can train employees based on our capability that we proved during the empanelment process, but there is no one who can certify. So it is not required to have a certified trainer. What do we want to train? Some basic stuff on sensitization, what you can and can't do, and what are the things to do. It can be done by anyone, even one who is not certified, as long as they understand, they sensitize themselves to the POSH law and the requirements of the law. As I said, the experts would bring in that expertise through their experience that they have in that training and the knowledge that they gained through the process of training, right? Even we certify employees on completion of the training, IC members on completion of the training, but that doesn't make them certified trainers at any point. If anyone else does that, it's a bluff. No one can do it. What we can do is conduct a session where we impart the knowledge and whether they met the criteria for that training that we define. So certified trainer as a concept itself is a myth. So your question is like anyone can train even without a certification. But if you have a training, it only means that you have certain knowledge about the product or knowledge about the law and the procedures, and then you can go ahead and impart that knowledge on others. Organizations like eLearn POSH, we have been doing it for the last 8 years now, and we've over a period of time we've built our capability to do it much more efficiently. We have tools and resources which can help to do it at scale at a very low cost. Then that is something that can help you achieve the same result. You can do it. If you don't want to go through that, you want to do it on your own, you can do it. For IC, it's a lot more difficult because of the legal complexity and nuances. There, I recommend, though I'm not saying that is the way the law is, I recommend that you conduct a training with an expert or a legal professional who has in-depth knowledge on IC, or you can attend the free session on 14th of November. We are conducting it. There is no charge. If you want a certificate for them, then you need to pay, but otherwise there is no charge. The knowledge is free for our session. Okay, I hope that I answered that question. Vishwas. So next one, IC members should be considered always, the IC members should be concerned always all the guidelines. Uh, I think about the complexity. Yes, IC is very, very critical. Their knowledge and capability to understand POSH law and implement it in the organization is very important. So from that point of view, they should be really be concerned about all the rules and regulations and all that. And it's not something that can happen through a 1 or 2 day workshop. It is a consistent effort. That's why our program is e-learning, which is available all through the year. You can go one time, go through it, get the certificate. That is fine. But after that, you'll always have it as a reference. Tomorrow, if you want to see how conciliation happens, you can go through the e-learning. You can go to the webinar. You will find a couple of webinars conducted by various speakers. You'll find the templates in the conciliation template library. You'll have questions answered in FAQ. It is support available. You still have a question, you can reach out to the expert. If you go for any other workshop kind of a method, you do a 1 or 2 day workshop. After that, within a week, you will forget 80% of what you went through. You will be overwhelmed with the complexity of the law, but you don't have any reference material. The max that you might get is a small booklet like what I've got here, which is the Barracks book, right? So that's the max that you would get because nobody can give you reference material. But what we have is a comprehensive program. So that's something that can help. But should you be concerned about the complexity? Yes, you should be. But with proper support and resources and tools, you can easily navigate through this because organizations have done it time and again, right? So if the complainant fails to participate in an inquiry after the respondent has been heard, there are ex parte methods where ex parte recommendations can be provided by the IC. More details will be on the 14th session. You need to have at least 3 rounds of attempts to connect with the complainant or the respondent with 15 days notice on the last one. If they still don't turn up, you can go through the ex parte method and go with the inquiry without them and then do it. If they withdraw the complaint at any time, you can definitely allow them to withdraw and you can close the case with that withdrawal, right? Is it mandate to update the internal committee on SheBox? I think we covered that. While the law as much doesn't say that because the law has not been updated after SheBox, but the ministry has put it on their portal saying that it's mandatory. The labor officers, the district officers have been asking organizations to do it as it's mandatory. The court has also pronounced this as a step towards that. So I think there is enough indication that it's mandatory. And so you may be penalized if you don't do it. So we recommend you go ahead and do it. And it's not a complex process from the registration point of view, but very difficult to get the approvals from the district officer. But at least you can make sure your effort is taken care of. Do we tell the respondent the name of the complainant when we notify him a complaint is filed? Absolutely, because this principles of natural justice expects you to reveal the name of the complainant. No anonymous complaints, no inquiry without the name being revealed. Not possible. It is confidential. Even the respondent cannot reveal it outside, but the respondent has a right to know who the complainant is because of principles of natural justice concept. It's a civil law, right? Not a criminal law. Civil law. So principles of natural justice should be followed, and it's also clearly explicitly mentioned in the law and the rules of the act. So that way it's important to reveal the name of the complainant. NHRD assesses around POSH law competency tests and gives certificate. Does that qualify as a POSH expert as a trainer? I think I've answered that sufficiently. Government doesn't authorize anyone as certified. I can also claim that I certify you as a trainer, but that's not the case. Even if eLearn POSH provides a certificate, it will say that you have met the requirements of our training program. It is not something that you have met the requirements to be a certified external member or certified member. Nobody can certify. That's the reality. I don't want to sell anything that's wrong. So we provide great quality training, probably one of the best that we feel we have in the country. But that doesn't mean that we are the certified body because no one is the certified body to certify another trainer. Can we nominate a shop floor employee as an IC member? Absolutely. Anyone who's an employee can be an IC member. Presiding officer recommended that they are senior employees so that they have the maturity to handle presiding officer as a key part of the IC. The quorum, they must be always part of the quorum, always be part of the quorum and all that. So it's important. But shop floor employee can also be part of the IC. IC members should be concerned always about the guidelines. I think I answered that. Um, yes, they must be following the law. They must be going through the guidelines very clearly, because any wrong step there can go for a court appeal and reputation will be damaged and all of that. What are the steps for the inquiry process? I think I covered, Chris, on the inquiry process steps. If there are more questions on the inquiry process, the 14th of November session would be a deep dive into that. And it's a free session. You can join, you can register. We shared the link. We'll also send it on an email. Apart from IC and police station, is there any other competent authority that could handle POSH complaints? I think Maya mentioned that anyone with less than 10 employees, there's something called a local committee which can handle. Or if the complaint is against the employer, like say, for example, I go ahead and find an organization, I create an organization with about 20, 30 employees, and someone has a complaint against me, they can go to the local committee to file the complaint, and they have powers equal to that of a equal to that of an internal committee. Because internal committee is reporting to me, obviously they cannot take action on me, so the local committee does that. And if they pass a recommendation as an employer, they have to implement it. If appeal goes, then the same way as our appeal against POSH judgments, POSH recommendations, it goes to the appropriate appellate authority based on who the appellate authority is. Okay, so I think I answered that, Rajeshwari. So next one, how is the order in writing to be made for a partnership firm since there won't be a board resolution? Very, very good question. So for a partnership firm, there are say 2 or 3 partners, right? So the managing partner or any one of the partners can sign an order in writing. That is something that can be the order in writing. If there is an agreement where you have the HR related responsibilities are uh, uh, vested on a particular partner, then obviously they will give you the order in writing. So any one of the partners can generally provide the order in writing because they become the employer. Order in writing should be from the employer. In case of a board, there is a group. So the board resolution is something that's an order in writing. In case of a trust, uh, board of trustees can be, or the managing trustee can also be considered as an employer. In case of a one-person company or the proprietorship or anything, then that person who owns that company can do it, or anyone he authorizes as the HR professional can do it. Or in case of a partnership firm, in case of an NGO or a Section 8 company, based on who's managing those, the employer responsibility can be provided to them. Okay. Uh, the very first question on top has not been answered. Okay. Which question was that? Board resolution can be from a private limited company. What about LLP and partnership firms? I think I may answer that question. Was that on Shebox? I think I answered that during the answering of Shebox. I don't know if that is a question that you're mentioning about. There's a question. Thank you for this webinar. Could you please cover the Shebox registration process in different scenarios, like one company having work locations at various places? I covered that branches, how it is covered, where the head office will register the nodal officer, then he will add all the branches and then appoint the nodal officers. Then each one of those would register from there, right? Uh, Box registration, we will believe it's mandatory. I think that's the question. If it is not, please, can you please paste it again? I will definitely answer that. Okay, what is the ways to inform employees about the change in IC? Again, you can put the notice, post the images, or notice, send email, or put it on, if you're using portal like Learning, eLearn Posh, you can put it on the learning portal, you can have it in your intranet. All of these are methods. However, you build awareness for your employees about these reporting guidelines or policy changes, the same way you can actually do it even for building awareness on this, right? Can the presiding officer be outside the country? Okay, very, very good question. International companies have this problem all the time. The law expects that presiding officer is an employee of the organization, right? Because they can't be an employer, they have to be an employee. which means they must be located within the organization. Also, there are a lot of responsibilities where the presiding officer has to be part of the internal committee, and they're going to play a crucial role in the entire inquiry process. So we do not recommend an outside country kind of a presiding officer. Also, there is a cultural angle to it. In case you have a foreign presiding officer, they may not understand the sensitivities required for an Indian law. So, from that point of view, it is not possible to have a presiding officer from outside the country to understand completely. Even if you consider that, okay, they were Indian, they went there, and from there they are doing it. Our recommendation is to have someone local who can be accessible. They can attend all the inquiries and they'll be able to match with the timelines, everything that is expected out of POSH. But can they be outside? As long as they are an employee of this legal entity, they can be outside as well. Okay. Okay. Any question that I have? What if a complaint against a senior officer or IC members refuse to take the case as they are afraid of future repercussions if it is malicious complaint? Okay. Um, So if a IC refuses to take complaint, the complainant can definitely go and appeal to the court. That is something that is definitely an option available to them. Uh, if IC is not formed at that time, they can go to the local committee. If the IC does not accept the complaint, then also they can go to the local committee. Um, Repercussions when you are appointed as an IC member, I think you should understand that you have certain responsibilities. Malicious complaint or not can be found only after conducting the inquiry. Before that, if you do, then I think it's right that you should not be part of the IC, right? If you judge so soon that it doubt the complaint as malicious without even conducting the inquiry, I think there's a serious problem. But otherwise, IC should take the complaint that is filed and go through the inquiry process or conciliation process, whatever that is required for that. Malicious complaint or not should be revealed through the inquiry process, not by just mere judgment of the complaint or the character of the person. Right. So I hope that is answered. If not, you can put a follow-up question. I will definitely answer that. Okay. So with that, I think we still have some 20 odd questions, 15 odd questions. We'll cover more on the topic and then we'll come back. The For POSH IC members, we did mention what we have. Again, there is a session on 14th of November. It's a free session. You can attend that session if you just want knowledge. If you want certificate and access to all of these tools and resources like a webinar recording for that session, for the IC training, posters library or drafting tool, policy drafting tool, you will get that if you pay $9.99. You will get also the certificate of attending the training, which can be used for your annual report. Again, this is not trainer certification. We are just conducting a training, and for that training, your participation or completion certificate would be provided if you attend that training. That would be provided if you pay that $9.99, right? Along with all the bonus features that are there. Okay. So, as I said, there is also an IC capacity training, which is part of our subscription. As I said, there are 3 webinars that are live during the year. The November webinar, it's conducted by me and Deepa Rafiq. I'm going through the appeal process about the service rules, how it works in the private organization, how does the appeal work internally, where do you go for an appeal externally, the Standing Orders Act, how does it work in an industrial employment, all of those would be discussed, while Deepa would go deep dive into SheBox all the way from registration up to annual report filing. While there are a lot of complexities in SheBox portal, Deepa is one of the experts who's been delivering a lot of great quality sessions on SheBox and a lot of help for us as well in terms of with her insights that we share in our groups. So she would be taking us through the SheBox process, right? So this is available. This is for a fee of $5.99 if in case you're not a subscriber. If you subscribe to our IC subscription, then this is a free session, right? All right. Let me just move forward to the annual report. Okay, I'll pass it on to Maya so that she will take you through the annual report and I'll come back finally to answer the rest of the questions. All right.
So, hello again. Can you hear me? Yeah, thanks. So yeah, let's give Santosh a short break. Let him go and sip water. So let's discuss the last step that's part of the POSH compliance, which is filing of annual report. So discussing about annual report, there are two reports an organization must file to ensure the compliance or close the compliance of POSH law, compliance with the POSH law with the government. The first one that we're going to talk about is the one that you would be filing with the district officer. Annual report, which IC would be filing to the employer, and employer would be sharing it with the district officer. This is what is mentioned in the section 21 of the POSH Act, where if you can see the screen, you see a few words highlighted, right? The internal committee every calendar year must file an annual report to the employer and the district officer. The district officer would be forwarding this annual report to the state government. So this is the way basically the government keeps a track of, how many organizations have internal committee in place, what's the number of complaints that they receive, are the trainings being conducted on time, etc. So let's discuss a little more. So this, like I already said, this report would be filed for a calendar year period. That is from January, for example. If you have to file the report for this year, you would be filing in the report, you would be including information from Jan 1st of 2025 to December 31st of 2025. And when would you be filing it? There is actually, as per the POSH law, at least as per the Act, there is no certain deadline that's been given. However, the general understanding, the general consensus in the space of POSH is that you would be submitting it within the period of Jan 1st to Jan 31st. Also, our district officers and women commission and everything in a lot of districts, specifically Mumbai, Gurgaon, New Delhi, has been insisting on filing the annual report by January 31st. Right? So there have been times where Mumbai city or some other districts have given an extension till March, end of March as well. So what information would you be sharing in this report? Of course, as per the law, the details that you should mention are shown on the screen. First, the number of sexual harassment complaints filed in that year from Jan beginning to December end. Number of complaints has been redressed. It's been closed. Everything has been done, as in the inquiry is done. The recommend has been shared with the employer, and the employer has taken action. Then the number of complaints pending for resolution. That is, it's been filed. The inquiry has been started, but it's not closed, and it has crossed the 90-day period that which is the deadline to close, or which is the deadline to finish the inquiry into a POSH complaint. If there are complaint that has crossed that timeline, even that should be mentioned in the report. The actions taken by the employer. So one is definitely this means two things. One is definitely the actions that the employer has taken against each complaint. For example, say you can have it in as numbers. Complaint 2025/01. The respondent is terminated, or say respondent was given a warning letter, respondent was, and also the organization has done these many measures to improve safety within the workplace, and these are the proactive steps the organization has been taking. So these are the kind of actions that the employer would be mentioning in the report. In addition, the workshops or any kind of training program the organization has taken to improve awareness. All this means the training program that the organization has been conducting for employees as well as the internal committee members, which means you have to train all the employees that you have in place for the whole calendar year, including the internal committee members. So this can be either classroom training by your in-house trainers like HR or internal committee members, or you can have classroom training from an external consultant, or even an e-learning training by an external provider, something like what eLearnPosh does. So any of these mode of training is good enough as long as the information that's shared is sufficient for the functioning of the organization and the internal committee. So this is another report, but before this, a small disclaimer I would like to make is the method of filing the annual report to the district officer that we had just discussed right now has been in place since the POSH law was enacted in 2013. But there are discussions and talks now that there might be a change in the way annual report is filed. As in, right now, for most of the districts, it's more of a physical submission where the organization will go and submit it to the district officer's office. But there are talks that it might be changed to a more of an online filing process, especially since there's a launch of the She-Box. However, there is no solid confirmed information about this change yet. And hence, we are not, recommending any change in the process, but we are keeping an eye on any such update in terms of the change of annual report filing. And in case that we do see any kind of update, we would be making this update in all the resources that we have available right now. Having said that, let's discuss the director's report. So here, this director report, there is no change in filing at all. This is as solid as possible, right? So this is the report that the employer would be sharing, or the director of the organization would be sharing with the ROC, Registrar of Companies, and with all the shareholders. This is not a separate POSH report. It is the report for the whole organization's annual report. You would be including a clause about the POSH compliance in this report. So as you all know, the report period is definitely the financial year. So for this year, it would be from April 2025, beginning of April 2025 to March end 2026. And the filing would be done in by September 30th, 2026. So this is not an individual report only for POSH. Like I said, it's just a small clause, and you would be mentioning the details that shows the organization is compliant. For example, the number of cases handled, how many cases are disposed of, and in case there is any delay in the disposal of the complaints. So that's a very simple information. How can Elon Posh help you with filing the annual report is something that we have been discussing since beginning, right? How Elon Posh can help you with staying compliant to the Posh law. So of course, there is a lot of information available on the internet on how to, file the annual report. Definitely, first reference that you would be using is the POSH Act in itself, because it's clearly mentioned in the POSH Act and the POSH rules how to file the annual report. But there are some information that's still missing, especially the first one would be, where to go and file. We know district officer, but who are district officers is the question we still have. So let me quickly show how we can help you there again. So this is the IT tab that we have shown a couple of times already. So if you go down, you would see something called a template library. If you and just quickly take search for annual report, you will be seeing two templates that we can use. So this is a quick covering letter which will mention, give a context on what the information is about. And this annual report will have the template. So you just have to download, tweak in to the information to make sure that it applies to your organization and fill the respective information. Once this is done, download the information, print it in your company letterhead, get the company seal, get the signature of the presiding officer, and then you can go back to the same IC tab and search for something called the district officer contact details. Go for district officer contact details. Go and choose a state. Let's choose Karnataka. It will show you all the districts that's there. Let's go for our Bangalore urban just. Yeah, so here you would find the mail address as well as the physical address of the district officer. However, since the launch of She-Box, all this information, actually at least the email address of all the district officers are made available on the She-Box as well. So even in case you don't have enough information, you can still go and take it from there as well. So that's what we have about annual reports. Before we conclude the topics, I'll quickly take you through a new requirement that we have been seeing, which is the district survey. So let me give you a quick context on what happened here. So there has been this case that's been going on in the court for some time, which is a case of Aureliano Fernandez versus the state of Goa. Let me tell you what happened there. So this particular person, Aureliano Fernandez, was accused of a sexual harassment complaint. The internal committee conducted the inquiry and this person was found guilty. However, this person filed a writ petition in High Court saying, they have given reasons for the writ petition, but the High Court has dismissed his petition, which made this person approach the Supreme Court. Supreme Court did not definitely look into the merit of the case. They did not check if, the person was guilty or not. What they found out was that the inquiry had been carried out in a undue haste, as in it has been really quick without following the proper procedure, which also meant that this respondent was denied a fair hearing. Hence, principles of natural justice was not followed during the entire inquiry process, and hence the Supreme Court quashed the report and ordered for a fresh inquiry. But that's not the thing. The Supreme Court also used this case as a vehicle to kind of address the non-implementation, non-compliance of POSH Act throughout the country. So what the court has said is it has launched a certain set of guidelines to address the persistent non-implementation of POSH Act that we have been seeing for years. So as per the Supreme Court's directive, now all the district labor commissioners and state chief labor commissioner of all states must collect data from all the organizations existing in the country and physically verify if there is an internal committee available in all these organizations, if it's applicable for them. That is, if they have 10 or more employees in that. This data will be collected by the district labor commissioners and they would be sharing it with the Supreme Court. They'd also be uploading it on the SheBox portal. So in case they have found out any kind of non-compliance during this survey, there is a very high chance that the organization will face regulatory consequences. So the specific one we know as of now is when the organizations approach the labor department for your license renewals in the next round of license renewal, you might face that there's a refusal of license renewal until you are completely compliant with the POSH Act. So the governments have started this district survey. So what does this mean for you or us? What does this mean for us as an organization? So definitely we do have to comply with the POSH law. In addition, in case, these state or district labor commissioners do approach us, organizations, and ask for information to prove our compliance, these are the information that you can keep in place for your own safety. So first thing, of course, any kind of documentation that you have to prove your constitution of the internal committee, all the details of the IC members with their designation and contact details and their tenure, proof of the trainings that you have been conducting for both employees as well as the internal committee, all the annual POSH annual reports that you have been filing, at least for the past 5 years, that we have submitted to the district officer, some kind of acknowledgement for that, and the registration, SheBox registration acknowledgement that we have been receiving over email. You can keep all of these in place, including in case you have not received the response from SheBox, like Santosh has mentioned already, all the emails that you have been sending to the district officer and the technical support team of SheBox can also be kept as an acknowledgement. Along with that, you can also have all the information that we already have that's part of the annual report, which would be the cases disposed, cases handled, and the cases that are being delayed. So that is pretty much what we have today in this entire webinar. But however, we will be still answering the questions that's been posted on the Q&A. So passing it on to Santosh.
Thanks, Maya. So I will answer the remaining questions that are there on the portal. So while the SheBox mandates us to register centrally, then we add the nodal officers, then they receive OTP to register the IC. Now, in case of multiple branches, resorts, corporate offices, are we required to register every registered business unit, have a separate IC for each registered business unit? So that's how it lands, because if you create the branch office as it exists, then you will have to upload the nodal officer, and the nodal officer has to add the IC. If you don't upload the branch officers, you just have the central office uploaded, the headquarters uploaded, then you'll just add the IC for that. So it's totally under the control of the nodal officer. Based on how your structure of IC is, you can structure the branches that you upload as well. If you look at purely on the letter of how it would work, then every branch office that is entity registered in every district should have um, a registration on SheBox as well. Because in SheBox, when you look at the hierarchy, it will ask you to select the state and then the district. So in that district, you can have one branch office. Even if you have 4 or 5 branches, you can combine them and register as one and have one IC. But for each district, you have to register separately. That's how the SheBox portal is structured. But if you just register the headquarters as one organization and have just one IC there, that would technically work, but whether it is right or wrong, again, the other alternative to be completely right, you need to go for separate IC in each place. Right? So that is the situation. Our recommendations to have every branch office registered and every IC registered so that it is complete in terms of reporting. What if the timeline is missed? Any penalties? I'm not sure for which timeline. In terms of filing report and all that, if you miss the timeline, just go ahead and file the report even if it is delayed. Don't or retract from filing the report, right? Annual report I'm talking about. If you're talking about the timeline of handling the complaint, um, of course, then one of them can go to the court and you might have to answer that question there, because law states that it shall be completed within 60 days. They shall file the report within 10 days of completing the inquiry. The organization shall take action as on the recommendations within 60 days. So it's all shall. The law, the way you read law is like may and shall. May is like optional, shall is like mandatory. So that way, if you look at it, there is no option given. Anything that you delay can be considered as non-compliance, would mean all the penalties that are applicable for non-compliance, including 50,000 penalty for non-compliance, and then doubling of it the next time, and then cancellation of business licenses. All of those options are available. So that is the way you should look at if in case you miss the timeline on handling the complaints or even filing the report. But do file the report, handle it, do it as soon as possible. There are rare situations where handling the complaints, they've given extension, but otherwise, mostly it should be within the timeline. Schools and colleges, ICs are also to be registered on SheBox. Um, I'm sorry, schools and colleges at this point, um, if you are an employer with 10 employees, for that you need to register. For the employer-employee relationship, you need to register. So school and college would also have employees. For that part, you would be considered as an organization, as an employer who's employed. For that, you need to register. But regarding the colleges, there is a separate jurisdiction that is based on higher educational institutions, if you are affiliated with UGC, or similar kind of structure for AICTE. For those, there is a separate regulation that is governing that. That would be handled through the UGC portal. There is a registration option, that is filing report option and all that on the UGC portal itself. You'll have to follow that. For schools, for the teachers or the staff members, it will be through the IC part. For the students, it will be a POXO, which is slightly a different law altogether and not part of the POSH regime completely, right? So that's the way you should look at it. But for the staff members, definitely IC has to be registered if there are more than 10 employees. Okay. In case of in my case, our presiding officer has not received the credentials yet, despite repeated attempts of contacting support on the SheBox portal. How do we resolve this? Keep the contact mails, drafts, or sent items for your record. Keep that safe, because that is the way you can show that you have made all those attempts. But otherwise, you can't do much at this point. because you're not alone there. Even we are part of that same group. We've also sent, and there is a lot of delay in certain uh, regions and states and districts. Uh, that is something that is a challenge, but you can only keep that as documentation. Keep contacting them if at all sometime the labor department asks you, have you registered, what is the status and all that. Share that, and then you will definitely be excused because you're not alone there. There are a lot of people and they will understand. That's the only recommendation that we have right now. The general escalation process is first contact the district nodal officer a couple of times at least, then send a couple of times to the tech support, and that should be sufficient documentation to say that you've made sincere attempts to register. Okay. Um, so people are asking for links for the uh, webinar, and let me just pass all the three links on the chat box so that everyone would get access to those links. Yeah, I think we should, my team member pasted that, Vishwadeep. So that's taken care of. So that's done. 5 branch locations in India metropolitan, 1 IC, 3 women due to limited women, total 4 in organization. Is that okay? How many annual reportings we have to file? So if you have in each district, you have to file the annual report. Even if you have a single IC for the country, you should file in each district. So you should file separate annual report for each of those districts. But if you have only one IC and you've registered all of the IC as only one in the SheBox portal, uh, which is against our recommendation, we should recommend for all districts. But if you register only one IC, then just that for that headquarters alone, you may have to file, which means the branch offices will not be listed. And you have a rationale on why you can't do it because there are 3 or 4 women employees. And so the risk is also low. If in case there are no external visits and your employees are not visiting outside, then that should be sufficient to have it as one IC from the logical point of view. So at least make sure you file in one district if you are doing it through SheBox. If you're doing it through physical or email option, then do it on all the 5 districts where the branches are located. I hope that's answered. Um, okay, this is already answered. What about presiding officer of no senior employee in the company? As I said, you can, if there are no senior women employee in the company, then you can go for sister company or group company, someone from there. If no one is there, then you can go for external member who's women. That is also absolutely fine. There are organizations where they formed IC with 2 external members, women non-employees, while they don't have any women employee within their organization, just to provide the structure so that there is handling. But employees are there as male employees, part of the committee as well. If a company's POSH policy, see, again, it may not be purely by the letter of the law because the letter of the law states that you should have one women employee, senior employee, but you don't have one. So you're going with external member because you are upholding the spirit of the law. That's the way you should look at it in all of those. As much as possible, we'll comply with the letter, but definitely we will not contradict with the spirit of the law. That's the way you should look at any law implementation, including POSH Act. If a company's POSH policy is gender neutral and the internal committee takes up a complaint from a male employee in accordance with that policy, would IC still retain the powers of a civil court in such case? No, they would not have unless the company's service rules or the code of conduct and other policies provide for similar powers where they say that you can get all these evidences within the organization. But of course, it's limited within the organization, within the jurisdiction that is there, but they will be able to use those powers. But that I think generally organizations would provide. If you have a HR, they would have the right to contact or call someone for an inquiry and then conduct the inquiry. That is something that is there. Call for witness and evidence, but it should be there in writing. If not, they can go to the court and say, how can you take the CCTV footage for this purpose? It was for only security, not for these things and all that. They can go to the court. So make sure um, you have that provided in your policy. Okay, please share the link of 31st October webinar. I think it is there on the uh, chat. I think it was shared recently by Vishwa with the Succeed Technologies name. You would have that. Can female employee become presiding officer if she is on a probation period? Senior women employee is the requirement, but if you don't have any option, if there is a only female employee, then you can go ahead with that. Okay, there are a few questions here. Hi, is it applicable only for companies which are registered in Companies Act, or if it even applies to trust shops which are not considered as companies registered under Companies Act? As I said, even if it is a single proprietor enterprise, companies, subsidiaries of a foreign company, or a company or a trust or partnership firm, LLPs, anything, POSH Act is applicable. If you're just a single person finance or accounting firm and you have about 200 employees working within your organization, that is also covered by POSH Act. So it's not restricted to only companies or trusts. It's for anyone and everyone who's got 10 employees. If you're an employer and you have 10 employees, then POSH Act is applicable for you. Is there any legal action taken on members who's exploited his or her position as an internal committee member? See, you can take a legal action. There is a penalty that's already provided, I think 5,000 or something. There's a penalty for confidentiality misuse and all that. But I'm not sure what level of legal action you're looking at. Probably some more clarity, I will be able to answer whether it's possible or not. Does you become external member of IC team? If yes, then what are the annual charges? Okay. I don't know if it is eLearn doesn't provide external member services directly. We have a directory of external members, as Maya must have shared the screen. You can search. We have some phenomenal external members. We also have a group where external members uh, can post questions. A lot of us answer those questions from our team, from other external members. It's a community driven by the community. We run periodic sessions once in a while to educate on each one of those topics like Shebox or appeals or other things. So we do cover that. So we have some capable external members. You can go and pick up from there. We don't provide, as we strongly believe that it is not right for a service provider to be part of external member. We also believe that external members should not take trainings or provide other services if you are part of a committee or an inquiry, because then you are dependent on the fee of the organization. Unless it is fixed and if it is variant, then it would not be fair for external member to provide other services. That's our belief, but we are not forcing it on them. But we believe that we should not be part of it. That's why we don't provide. But you will find phenomenal members on our external member directory, and it's free to register. If you want to register, you can go to the external member directory and register as an external member if you are an external member. If you want to know more, attend the 31st October training session, not a training, a discussion on how you can collaborate with our eLearn POSH. Okay, I think I answered on the applicability. If any organization has two offices in a district, do they have one IC is sufficient or both location? We strongly believe each district should have one IC. That's what the law is also looking at, and any branch offices. And if it's within the district, it would not be required to have two offices. But if you feel the travel between the two districts is too far and your employees are blue collar, they may not be able to reach out through any of the phone or other methods so easily, and you feel someone having in that district is important. If you want to do it easily, you can have representatives from both the offices, both the branches, and then have a single IC. If not, have two ICs as well. It's all based on how much risk is there, how much difficulty it's going to put the person through if in case they want to reach out to the IC. If it's not too difficult, then you can even have one IC. If an organization has 40 workplaces and each workplace has more than 10 employees, it's mandatory for organization to constitute internal committee in each. I think I answered that. If an organization appoints the same four-member IC for all workplaces through separate board resolutions for each location, would that be considered a sufficient compliance? Um, it is definitely, as long as nobody goes and appeals saying that you don't have sufficient structure to handle complaints, in one of the cases, I don't think this would create a problem. What you need to make sure is take enough steps to provide easy access to the IC, online, phone, email, having representatives in different places. All of that is very, very important so that employees don't feel aggrieved by just structuring the IC this way. That's when they will go to the court. And if they have a problem in terms of the judgment, if they go to the court, they'll find if they go for a lawyer, the lawyer would definitely identify all the 10 flaws that you have in your process and they would highlight it. For that reason, it's good to have some level of distribution in terms of IC. But if you handle your employees well, if you protect them from POSH complaints, I don't think this would be a big problem. Where the problem would come is when the labor inspector asks you, how have you got your IC? There, if you don't have sufficient structure, then they might question at some level. But again, um, there's nothing wrong if you can handle the complaints better. I have examples of organization where they have about 400 employees completely distributed across the country, all working from home, except for a small group working from the headquarters, where they just have one IC. Everyone is like distributed. There are a couple of branches in some remote places, but they don't have an IC on their own. But headquarters is able to manage it, and they've been running smoothly for the last 4 or 5 years now with Elon Posh. So they never had a problem. As long as there is no case, this may not be questioned as much. But if Labor Department starts questioning, then you may need to look at restructuring that. Can a company have one external member for two offices? There is nothing wrong in doing that. You can have one external member for all your branch offices as well. As long as they are accessible, this is not a big problem. I think that answers all the questions that are there in the Q&A panel. We have posted a survey link on the portal. If you can share your feedback on the session, we would really appreciate it. Any improvements or possibilities that we can do these things better, it will be great. As I mentioned, we have a few sessions coming up next. So please do join those sessions. If you want to partner with Elon Posh, there's a session there. I think the links are already shared. You can join that session on 31st of October at 3 p.m. If you wish to learn about the IC process, there's a session on 14th and there's another one on 21st, which is a paid session. The 14th one is free to attend, but if you want certificate and other bonuses, you can pay. That is also available for you, right? I hope we gain some insights on the POSH law. If you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to us. If you wish to buy our services or solution, write to sales@succeedtech.com. Our team will be happy to help you too, right? If there are no questions posted, I think we're good. Thanks a lot for joining this session. We appreciate your time. I hope this session was useful for you, right? Thank you.